Have you ever found yourself pacing the floor, completely consumed by an argument that has not even happened yet? You are standing in the shower, or driving on an empty highway, or lying in bed in the quiet hours of the night. Suddenly, your mind is at war. You are defending yourself. You are delivering the perfect, sharp response. You are bracing for an unfair attack from a colleague, a partner, or an old friend. Your heart beats faster. Your hands tighten. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your physical body is reacting as if a massive threat is standing right in front of you, but the room is completely empty. The only conflict is the one playing out in the endless theater of your own mind. What if the peace you are desperately trying to protect is being destroyed by the very defenses you are building? Most people do not realize that rehearsing for a battle that may never arrive is a silent, exhausting thief. If you have ever felt completely drained by your own thoughts or stuck in a loop of imaginary conflicts, this is for you. In Buddhist thought, much of our deep, lingering suffering does not come from the actual events of our lives. It comes from our mind's constant, fearful anticipation of them. We are taught by our anxieties that if we can just plan for every possible negative outcome, if we can just script the perfect argument, we will somehow be safe. We believe our overthinking is a protective shield. But Buddhist wisdom reminds us that this attachment to a fabricated future guarantees only one thing: we suffer twice. Once in our vivid imagination, and perhaps again in reality, though very often the reality never even matches the disaster we meticulously constructed. Think of it like carrying a massive, heavy iron shield with you everywhere you go. You carry it into the gentle morning sunlight. You carry it to the dinner table. You hold it up tightly while trying to rest. Your arms ache, your spine is bent, and your spirit is utterly exhausted. You tell yourself, "I must hold this shield because someone might throw a stone." But look around. The sky is clear. There are no stones. You are exhausting yourself for a violent storm that exists nowhere but in your own forecast. We do this constantly in our daily lives. We read a brief neutral message from a loved one and immediately begin drafting a defensive essay in our heads. We anticipate criticism from a boss and spend our entire weekend bitterly arguing with a phantom version of them. We become so entangled in these invisible disputes that we completely miss the actual, peaceful moments right in front of us. We let our fearful thoughts become our absolute commander, marching us into wars that do not exist. Ask yourself, right now, in this very moment, what are you still fighting in your head? Who are you arguing with in the silence of your own mind? And most importantly, is this rehearsal bringing you safety, or is it only feeding your fear? Pause. Breathe. Observe the thought without following it down the dark path. You do not have to finish the imaginary argument. You do not have to attend every battle your mind invites you to. When you feel the tension rising over a conversation that has not happened, step back. Notice the thought, but do not give it a sword. Let the feeling rise without making it your identity, because peace is not something you endlessly chase. It is something you make space for when you finally put the heavy armor down. But letting go of this deep need to prepare for pain is only the first step, and this is where the next truth begins. What if the harder you try to protect yourself from getting hurt, the more you guarantee your own suffering? Here is the truth few people want to face. We confuse worrying with problem solving. We confuse mental rehearsal with genuine strength. We believe that by playing out every worst-case scenario, every bitter argument, and every potential betrayal, we will not be caught off guard. We tell ourselves, if I practice my anger now, if I know exactly what to say, I will not be crushed when they finally let me down. You rehearse the confrontation over text messages yet to be sent. You map out the exact cutting words you will use when someone crosses a boundary. You build towering walls of logic and defense before anyone has even knocked on your door. You think you are being smart, You think you are being prepared. But Buddhist wisdom teaches us something profoundly different about this kind of preparation. It teaches us about the illusion of control. A deep root of our suffering is the belief that we can manage the unfolding of reality through the sheer force of our anxiety. Buddhism reminds us that the future is entirely unwritten. It is shaped by countless conditions and moving parts, completely outside of our grasp. When we try to script the future, we are not creating safety. We are merely practicing our own misery in advance. Imagine a person standing on the edge of a great, quiet lake. They have heard a rumor that a violent storm might arrive, even though the sky above them is perfectly clear. Terrified of being unprepared, they begin throwing heavy rocks into the water, violently thrashing the surface, trying to learn how to fight the waves. They exhaust themselves fighting the turbulent water they created with their own hands. When a real wind eventually blows, they are too tired to steer their boat. And if the storm never comes, they have ruined a perfectly peaceful day by choosing to drown in imaginary waves. How often do we do this with the people we care about or the lives we are trying to build? A partner is unusually quiet one evening, and suddenly you are mentally packing your bags and walking away from the relationship. You are throwing rocks into the quiet lake, fighting waves of rejection that have not actually formed. You spend hours draining your emotional energy to build a defense against a ghost. Think about your own life. When you endlessly rehearse these conflicts, are you actually solving a problem, or are you simply teaching your mind to live in a constant state of threat? What are you afraid will happen if you simply let the future remain unwritten? The next time you catch yourself scripting a bitter defense, stop, breathe. Say to yourself gently, "This is not happening right now." Bring your attention back to the physical sensations of the room you are in. Let the feeling rise without making it a prophecy. Do your part in this exact second, then release the outcome. You do not need to be perfectly prepared for a pain that does not exist. You only need to be present. But understanding this illusion of control is only part of the journey, because constantly fleeing into these imaginary futures leaves a heavy, silent toll on your reality today. And this is where the next truth begins. What if your obsession with tomorrow is the very thing stealing your today? Here is the truth we often ignore. You cannot physically live in the future, but you can certainly lose your mind there. We spend so much of our lives projecting our energy forward, waiting for the next conflict, the bad news, or the heavy burden to finally drop. We sit in perfectly safe, quiet spaces, but our minds are miles away, entangled in a web of what-ifs and defensive preparations. We are convinced that by constantly scanning the horizon for danger, we are protecting our peace. But the terrible cost of living in the future is the complete sacrifice of the present moment. You are physically sitting at the dinner table, but mentally you are in a bitter dispute defending your worth to a colleague. You are resting on a quiet Sunday afternoon, but emotionally, you are exhausted from fighting a phantom argument with a family member that might never take place. In Buddhist thought, the present moment is the only place where life actually exists. The past is a memory, a footprint of a step already taken. The future is a mirage, a projection built entirely out of our lingering anxieties and deep-seated fears. One of the deepest lessons of Buddhism is that when we abandon the present to live in an imaginary timeline, we disconnect from reality itself. We suffer because we ignore the solid ground beneath our feet to fight shadows that have absolutely no substance. Imagine sitting by a warm, bright fire in a quiet, sheltered room. The light is soft, and the heat is deeply comforting. But instead of resting in the warmth, you sit with your eyes tightly squeezed shut, shivering uncontrollably. You are terrified because you are vividly imagining a bitter, freezing blizzard that you fear might arrive next month. You grip your arms, you tense your shoulders. You suffer from the biting cold of a winter that exists entirely in your head, while the gentle, healing warmth of the fire right in front of you goes completely unfelt. This is what we do when we let our overthinking script our days. We miss the warmth of the life we actually have. We miss the quiet beauty of a morning sky, the simple peace of a slow breath, the safety of an ordinary afternoon, because we are too busy shivering in a storm that has not arrived. We become ghosts in our own lives, haunting the hallways of tomorrow while our actual life passes by, completely unlived. Think about your own life. How many moments of quiet joy have you accidentally thrown away because you were busy rehearsing a tragedy? How many times have you missed the beauty of right now because your mind was locked in a bitter dispute with someone who was not even in the room? Ask yourself, what are you missing right now because your eyes are squeezed shut? Bring yourself back. Feel the solid ground beneath your feet. Notice the simple quiet of the space you are in. Pause, breathe. When the mind tries to drag you into a future conflict, firmly but gently pull it back to the exact physical space you inhabit. You do not have to abandon your present peace to pay a debt to an imaginary future. Let the future remain unknown. Let the present be enough, because missing your own life is a heavy price to pay for a false sense of security. But realizing this is not always enough to stop the mind from generating these chaotic scenarios. To truly break free, we must change our entire relationship with the thoughts themselves. And this is where the next truth begins. 4. The mind as a stage, not a commander. What if you do not have to believe every thought that enters your head? Here is the truth we constantly forget. Having a sudden, fearful thought is completely natural, but obeying it is always a choice. We treat every thought, especially the anxious, defensive, and angry ones, as absolute, unquestionable facts. When an imaginary argument pops into our head, we immediately snap to attention. A sudden thought tells you that a friend is pulling away, or that a colleague is secretly undermining you, and instantly you take orders from it. You let this single, unproven thought dictate your entire mood, ruin your peaceful morning, and twist your reality. We become exhausted servants to the endless, chaotic dictator living inside our own heads. Buddhist wisdom teaches us the profound practice of observing thoughts rather than becoming them. In Buddhist thought, the mind is simply a sense organ. It produces thoughts just as the ear hears sound or the skin feels the wind. You do not define yourself by every random noise you hear on the street, yet we so often define ourselves by every anxious thought our mind produces. One of the deepest lessons of Buddhism is non-attachment to the mind's chatter. Mindfulness is not about violently forcing your mind to be empty. It is about breaking the illusion that your thoughts are the undisputed ruler of your life. Imagine your mind as a vast, ancient, and quiet theater. The thoughts you have are simply actors walking across the open stage. Some actors are calm and quiet, but others are loud, aggressive, and highly dramatic. They wear terrifying masks of anger, fear, and insecurity. They stomp their feet, they wave imaginary swords, and they demand your absolute participation in their war. But you must remember, you are not the angry actor. You are the quiet, spacious theater itself. How often do you let the most dramatic actor take over your entire reality? You receive a vague, short message from someone you care about, and immediately the fearful actor leaps onto the stage. It shouts, "They are leaving. You must defend yourself." And instead of watching the actor pass, you jump onto the stage and join the play. You spend your entire evening rehearsing your defense, pacing the floor, caught up in a tragic script that the actor completely made up. You surrender your inner peace to a loud voice waving a weapon made of thin air. Ask yourself, looking at your own life, The last time you felt consumed by a mental argument, were you observing the thought, or were you blindly obeying it? Is this recurring, exhausting thought bringing you peace, or is it feeding your fear? What would happen if you simply let the loud actor finish their lines and walk off the stage, without clapping, without reacting, without joining the play? The next time a defensive argument rises in your mind, stop, breathe. Do not fight the thought, but do not invite it to sit at your table. Say softly to yourself, I see this thought, but I do not have to serve it. Watch it, enter the stage, and watch it fade away, into the empty wings. Let the feeling rise without making it your identity, because peace is not found by frantically trying to silence the mind. It is found by finally realizing the mind is not your master. You are not the chaotic noise, you are the silence beneath it. But separating yourself from the noise requires a very specific kind of strength, and this is where the next truth begins. 5. The power of the pause. What if your greatest power lies not in what you do, but in the exact moment you choose to do nothing? Here is the truth we rarely accept. You do not have to answer every emotion the second it speaks. We live in a world that demands instant reactions. Someone says something that stings, or a familiar worry flashes across your mind, and you instantly snap into defense mode. You feel the sudden heat in your chest and immediately fire back a harsh message, or you dive headfirst into an imaginary argument, determined to win before the other person even knows there is a conflict. We mistakenly believe that speed is strength. We think if we do not react instantly, we are weak, vulnerable, or easily defeated. But Buddhist wisdom teaches us the profound importance of the space between a feeling and an action. It is the practice of the sacred pause. In Buddhist thought, a reaction is automatic, driven completely by our old fears and deep attachments. A response, however, is a deliberate choice made in stillness. One of the deepest lessons of Buddhism is that our unnecessary suffering thrives in our impulsive reactions. When we blindly react to every fearful thought, we become exhausted prisoners to the fleeting emotions of the moment. Mindfulness is simply stretching the space between the spark and the flame. Imagine a dense, ancient forest right after a long, dry summer. A single tiny spark from a passing carriage lands on the dry leaves of the forest floor. If a violent wind instantly rushes in, the spark becomes a roaring, uncontrollable wildfire, burning down trees that stood for centuries. But what if there is a profound, perfectly still pause? What if the air simply refuses to move? In that deep quiet, the spark glows briefly, finds no chaotic wind to fuel it, and quietly turns to cold, harmless ash. The forest remains whole, silent, and deeply at peace. How often do you blow the violent wind of your own reaction onto a tiny, harmless spark? You receive a brief, ambiguous email from a colleague, and immediately the wind of panic rushes in, turning a simple question into a catastrophic wildfire of anxiety. A partner sighs heavily in the next room, and instead of letting the sound simply exist, you let your defensive pride blow the spark into a blazing, unspoken argument about your entire relationship. You burn down your own inner peace to fight a fire that you entirely created. Think about your own life. When was the last time you reacted instantly to a thought or a comment, only to later regret the massive fire you started? Are you confusing your rapid reactions with genuine protection? What are you so desperately afraid will happen if you simply wait before you respond? The next time you feel the sharp urge to defend yourself, whether out loud or entirely inside your head, do not move. Pause, breathe. Let the spark land. You do not have to blow on it. You do not have to turn it into a fire. Watch it glow softly and simply wait for it to fade on its own. Because true strength is not proving how fiercely you can fight. It is having the absolute calm to watch the spark die without ever needing to fuel it. But learning to embrace this pause means we must finally be willing to drop our favorite, heaviest weapon, and this is where the next truth begins. 6. Dropping the shield. What if the armor you wear to protect yourself is exactly what is slowly crushing you? Here is a truth that is deeply uncomfortable to face. We have confused being defensive with being safe. We walk through our daily lives, bracing for an impact that never comes. We construct elaborate mental arguments before a conversation even begins. We listen to our friends or colleagues, not to deeply understand them, but to silently scan their words for hidden criticisms. We assume that if we are always ready for a fight, we can never be caught off guard or made a fool. We believe this heavy emotional armor makes us strong, but living in a state of constant, silent warfare is profoundly exhausting. Buddhist wisdom teaches us the quiet liberation of putting our defenses down. In Buddhist thought, the root of this endless defending is the ego, the fragile, fearful part of us that constantly demands to be right, protected, and validated. We suffer because we are so deeply attached to guarding this image of ourselves against every perceived slight. But one of the deepest lessons of Buddhism is that true strength does not come from building thick, impenetrable walls. It comes from being like water. Water does not wear heavy armor. It does not fiercely fight the sharp rocks in its path. It simply flows over and around them. And because it does not resist, it cannot be broken. Imagine a solitary guard stationed at the massive wooden gates of an ancient stone fortress. Day and night, he stands in the cold, holding his heavy weapon drawn. His muscles ache, his eyes wildly scan the empty horizon, and his heart races at the sound of every breaking twig. He is utterly consumed by the fear of an invading army. Years pass. The seasons change, the gentle rain falls, and the surrounding fields bloom with quiet beauty. But the guard never sees the beauty, because his eyes are locked entirely on the illusion of an enemy. What he does not realize is that the war ended long ago. The only thing keeping him imprisoned at the dark, heavy gate is his absolute refusal to lay his weapon down. How often do you stand guard at the gates of your own life? Someone offers a small piece of feedback at work, and instantly you raise your weapon, turning a simple comment into a massive attack on your entire worth. A loved one takes a few hours longer to reply to a message, and you immediately retreat behind your high stone walls. Convinced you are being ignored or abandoned, you spend your precious, limited energy defending yourself against shadows. Think about your own life. What are you desperately guarding against right now? Who are you trying to defeat in a battle that only exists in your imagination? Is this heavy armor actually keeping you safe? Or is it just keeping you completely isolated from the peace of the present moment? You do not need to fight every battle your mind creates. Stop, breathe, soften your shoulders, unclench your hands. You can safely step away from the gate. Let the feeling rise without making it your identity. You do not have to prove you are invincible, because true peace is not found by building taller walls. It is found when you finally realize you no longer need them, but laying down your defenses leaves you face to face with the difficult, fearful thoughts themselves. And this is where the next truth begins. 7. Meeting your thoughts with compassion. What if the voice inside your head that constantly starts these imaginary arguments is not your enemy, but just a frightened part of you asking to be seen? Here is the truth we deeply misunderstand. We think we must violently conquer our own anxiety. We get angry at ourselves when we realize we are overthinking again. We hate the fact that we are pacing the floor, rehearsing a defense for a battle that does not exist. We try to aggressively push the chaotic thoughts away, commanding our minds to just stop. We treat our own inner world as a hostile territory, believing that if we are just harsh enough with ourselves, we can force the peace to return. We replace our imaginary arguments with actual self-judgment, but Buddhist wisdom teaches us a profoundly different approach. It teaches us that fighting your own mind is like trying to extinguish a fire by throwing dry wood into the flames. It only creates more heat, more resistance, and more suffering. Buddhism reminds us of the power of deep compassion, not just for the people around us, but for the chaotic, fearful, and wounded parts of ourselves. When an uninvited, disruptive thought arises, we do not meet it with anger or suppression. We meet it with gentle understanding. It is the quiet practice of welcoming the uncomfortable guest without letting them take over the house. Imagine a small, fragile bird that has accidentally flown into a quiet room and cannot find its way out. It is completely terrified. It violently throws itself against the heavy window glass, frantically beating its wings against the invisible barrier. If you grab a broom and aggressively chase the bird, trying to force it out the door, the bird only panics more. It flutters wildly, exhausting itself and injuring its own wings in the chaos. But what if you simply open the window, step back into the shadows, and sit perfectly still? If you offer the room nothing but silence, the bird eventually calms down. It feels the soft breeze, realizes it is not under attack, and quietly flies out on its own. How often do you chase the fearful thoughts in your mind with a heavy broom? You catch yourself deeply entangled in a bitter, imaginary dispute with a friend who has not replied to a message. And instead of gently understanding your own fear of being forgotten, you attack yourself. You mentally shout, "Stop overthinking. Why are you always like this?" You violently thrash around inside your own mind, trying to force the anxiety out of the room. You only make the wings beat harder. Think about your own life. When was the last time you were truly gentle with your own fear? Are you trying to violently silence the chaotic noise in your head? Or are you willing to finally sit quietly and understand what it is so afraid of? Is your harshness bringing you peace, or is it feeding your exhaustion? The next time your mind drags you into a bitter rehearsal, stop, breathe. Do not scream at the thought to leave. Gently say to yourself, "I see you are afraid right now, but we are safe." Let the feeling rise without making it your identity. Do not fight the bird. Just open the window and let it be. Because true peace is not the permanent absence of fearful thoughts. It is the quiet refusal to wage war against them. But once we stop fighting our own minds, a new kind of quiet space opens up. And this is where the next truth begins. 8. The freedom of not reacting. What if your greatest victory is the battle you simply refuse to attend? Here is the truth that goes against everything our pride tells us. We falsely believe that silence is a form of surrender. We live with a deep, burning compulsion to constantly defend our narrative. If someone misunderstands us, we feel a desperate need to frantically correct them. If a conversation ends on a tense note, we spend hours lying awake, drafting the perfect, cutting response that will finally prove our point. We believe that if we just find the right words, if we just react strongly enough, we can force the world to see us the way we want to be seen. But this endless need to have the final say is an exhausting trap. We become slaves to the opinions of others, completely surrendering our inner peace just to win an argument that ultimately does not matter. Buddhist wisdom teaches us the profound, quiet liberation of non-reaction. In Buddhist thought, the urge to aggressively defend ourselves stems from our attachment to the ego. We suffer because we falsely believe our inner worth can be destroyed by an outside word or a passing thought. But Buddhism reminds us that you do not have to catch every stone that is thrown at you. Non-reaction is not weakness. It is not being a victim. It is the ultimate form of self-respect. It is the deep, unwavering knowledge that your peace is simply too valuable to be traded for a meaningless, noisy victory. Imagine a vast, ancient river flowing powerfully toward the open ocean. On the banks of this river, a bitter storm is suddenly raging. The fierce wind is violently throwing dry branches, heavy mud, and sharp pebbles directly into the water. If the river stopped to fiercely fight every single branch, or tried to furiously throw every rock back onto the shore, it would completely lose its momentum. It would become a chaotic, tangled swamp. But the river does not stop. It does not argue with the wind. It simply receives whatever falls into it, lets it drift on the broad surface, and continues moving effortlessly toward the deep, silent sea. How often do you stop your entire life to fight a single pebble? A colleague makes a sharp, passive-aggressive remark, and instantly, you halt your entire day to wage war against their words. An old friend brings up a past disagreement, and you spend your precious evening desperately tangled in the branches of their anger. You sacrifice the deep, powerful momentum of your own life to engage in petty skirmishes that leave you utterly drained. Think about your own life. How much of your vital energy is currently being spent fighting branches that do not matter? What would happen if you simply let the misunderstanding exist without needing to violently correct it? Is your fierce reaction bringing you clarity, or is it only making the water muddy? The next time someone hands you an insult, or your own mind tries to lure you into a phantom argument, do not bite the hook. Stop. Breathe. Let the words fall into the water. You do not have to pick them up. You do not have to throw them back. Let the feeling rise, drift, and wash away without your participation. Because the deepest freedom you will ever experience is the sudden realization that you do not have to participate in your own suffering. But once you stop fighting the imaginary battles, you are left with only one place left to stand. And this is where the final truth begins. 9. Returning to the present moment. Think back to the empty room where this journey began. You are standing in the shower, or driving on that quiet highway, or lying in bed in the deep silence of the night. But this time something is profoundly different. The mind tries to offer you a sword. It tries to hand you a bitter script. It whispers that you must prepare for a battle, that you must vigorously defend your worth against a phantom enemy. But this time, you do not take the weapon. You look at the heavy iron shield you have carried for so long, the endless mental rehearsals, the exhaustion of trying to control the unwritten future, the violent reactions to tiny, harmless sparks. You see it all for what it truly is, a heavy burden you were never meant to carry. And with a quiet, deep breath, you finally set it down, because here is the beautiful, quiet truth that changes everything. The war is entirely over, because you simply refuse to attend it. We spend so much of our lives running from the present moment, convinced that if we just overthink enough, we can create a perfectly safe tomorrow. We let the loud, fearful actors take over the stage of our minds. We thrash in the quiet waters, fighting waves that do not actually exist. But as we have explored, true peace is never found by violently conquering your own mind. It is found by softly stepping back. It is found in the sacred, still pause between a fearful thought and your physical reaction to it. Buddhism reminds us that everything we are desperately trying to hold on to is constantly changing, like clouds drifting effortlessly across the open sky. You cannot control the weather. You cannot control what others will say, think, or do, but you can absolutely control whether you choose to stand shivering in the imaginary storm. You are the quiet, spacious theater. You are the deep, silent river. You are the steady, healing warmth of the fire. When you stop fighting ghosts, you suddenly realize how incredibly safe you actually are in this exact second. You realize that your self-respect does not depend on winning an argument that never happened. You do not need to constantly prove your worth or aggressively guard your gate against a world that is just as confused and fragile as you are. You only need to be present. You only need to breathe. Feel the solid ground beneath you. Listen to the quietness of the room. Notice the simple, profound miracle of your own breath, moving in and out, completely unbothered by the anxieties of tomorrow. This is where your actual life is happening, not in the exhausting memories of the past and not in the terrifying illusions of the future. Right here, right now. When you finally release the desperate need to script every interaction, you create a vast, beautiful space for life to simply unfold naturally. The next time the phantom army approaches your gate, remember that you hold the ultimate power. You do not have to fight. You can simply let the thoughts arise, watch them drift across the sky, and gently fade into nothingness. You can return to the solid ground beneath your feet. You can finally allow yourself to truly rest. If these lessons touched your heart, share this video with someone who may need a little more peace today. You can let go now.